You're listening to the Staging Sips podcast with Lori Fisher. This podcast is dedicated to helping real estate staging CEOs build healthy businesses that grow, flow, and thrive. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I cannot believe that we are in February already of 2024 at the time that this episode is dropping into your feed. Like, banana pants. I can't believe it. Anyway, this means that we are well into the start of our 2024, our goal setting, all of that good stuff. And today I want to talk to that Accelerate business owner where you are starting to feel like the bottleneck in your business, how to figure out if you need a virtual assistant for your staging business. And if for those growth business owners, of course, this is always going to be valuable for you. But again, you're in that phase of figuring out so much in your business and just getting the ball rolling. So this is not a topic I want you to even spend any time with. This is something that you save for later. So before we dive in, I do want to read a review because, as I mentioned in our previous episodes, I would love for you to help us get to that 10,000 download mark. We are so close. At the time of this recording, we are only 500 downloads away. And that means that we are pretty much this month going to hit the 10,000 downloads. And so that's like super, super exciting. But the way that we can help is by getting this podcast in front of other business owners. And the way that the podcast companies do that, like their algorithm, so to speak, is by the number of ratings and reviews. So I'm going to read this one review, and then I'm actually going to walk you through how to review the podcast because I realized it's not that straightforward. I kind of went in and thought, well, what if I wanted to review my podcast? How would I do that? So I'm going to teach you that. So first, let me read the review from Fio Vegas, Italy. It says, a well of knowledge. This podcast is simply an incredible source of information, and it feels like I found the holy grail of all things home staging. Lori delivers in such an approachable and clear way that I'm constantly thirsty for more. I have learned so much in only a few episodes. Thank you for your work, Lori. Well, you are welcome, Fio Vegas, Italy, however we're pronouncing that. But I want to say that when our future people review the podcast, I'd love if you would leave your social media profiles as well. So that way we can tag you on social media with your review of the podcast. Again, that's just one other way we can get in front of other staging business owners. So now onto the business of how you actually rate and review the podcast. So most of you, it seems, are tuning in from the Apple podcast app, I guess, as it were. So I'm going to walk through how to do this on Apple. So if you go into your Apple podcast episode and you go down to the bottom menu and on the right, there's the search bar and you're going to put in Staging Sips. And when that comes up, it comes up first with the show and then several episodes below. So you're going to click on the Staging Sips show little icon, and then you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. And once you scroll to the bottom, you'll see ratings and reviews, and you can tap to rate. There's 5 stars, so you can tap the stars there, and then it will prompt you to write a review once you've added your 5 stars or your rating. Actually, sorry, it does not. You click because I'm literally walking through this with you while I'm doing it. You can add your rating. So I just rated myself 5-star, by the way. That's so funny. And then below the one testimony, you'll see there's a little thing that says write a review. And that is, you click on that and you can go ahead and write a review and you can give it a title and all of that. And then you hit send when you're ready. So that is how you actually rate and review the podcast on Apple. So hopefully that helps some of you who have been trying to do that. The next thing I want to let you know is that in the Staging Business School, we have been focusing on creating systems and processes in addition to troubleshooting systems and processes that are not working as you go to implement them with your team. So if this is something that you have been struggling with or you don't even know where to begin with, in the Staging Business School for that Accelerate business owner, we are open for enrollment. I just want you to ask yourself, is it worth the investment to shortcut your results, to be in a community where you are not alone, you're all working on the same things for your businesses, and you can troubleshoot in real time, and you can be with other business owners in a room where we just get what you're going through. We get what you're up to. I just recorded an interview for the podcast with Rachel Moore of Mad Mod Home. We aired her episode last week, but she's got another one coming up next month where we talk about this, how it can be really lonely being, in this business if you don't have other people around you. So the Accelerate program for that Accelerate business owner is really just a phenomenal resource in so many ways. So you can join us by going to rethinkhomeinteriors.com/accelerate. That link is in the show notes. As always, join us. Take the leap with us. Totally worth the investment. And it will serve your business for years and years to come with that investment. Okay, so that is one checkbox, getting ratings or reviews so that we can get in front of other business owners, and rising tide lifting all boats. There's your enrollment link. And then the last thing is this. For the Staging Business School, we are going to be doing kind of an open house program coming up toward the end of the month. And I would love it if you took the time to complete a survey for us that will help us understand more about your business and where you're at. And then it would also help me come up with new content ideas, guests to bring on for Staging Sips. So be a part of the Staging Sips community by giving us some ideas about how we can help you better. So we're going to put in the show notes the link, but it's rethinkhomeinteriors.com/sips survey to do that. So without further ado, thank you for all of that. I want to share with you our episode about how to figure out if you need a virtual assistant for your staging business. So here we go. So one of the joys of the internet, there's so many joys of the internet, but one is really that you can now work with people from anywhere in the world. I have virtual assistants who are as local to me as New York State and as far away as Nigeria. And the Philippines. And I have a virtual assistant from Missouri here in the States. So, and California. I think it's so remarkable that we can bring together team members from all across the globe, which just adds to the richness of, the experience that you have as a business owner, the perspectives that you get into your business because people are coming from various walks of life and various backgrounds. And it's just like so exciting. And virtual assistants are a really nice way to dip your toe into the hiring process and can be highly valuable in helping you grow your business in a way that doesn't feel like you've got employees that you're now responsible for, because most of these people are coming with skill sets that you don't need to teach and train. And one of the biggest things when you're in Accelerate and you're growing your in-person, in team members in the form of maybe movers or assistant stagers, that's a lot of training that goes into that. But when you hire a virtual assistant, you're essentially hiring another business owner who is already established and has a track record doing what you need them to do. So it's a really great way to get team members on who are going to get up and running very quickly. So today we're going to dive into kind of a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of what a virtual assistant is, how they can help you, knowing what you need if you're ready, and then we'll dive into knowing how to hire in our next episode. So this is going to be a series of episodes coming up about virtual assistants and how to bring them into your business. So again, this is really an advanced topic for our Accelerate business owners, but again, for growth, this is just a view down the road for what you can be ready to plan for, which just is probably would have helped me, I know, as a business owner when I was first starting out, to just understand like what's ahead, that you won't always be just you in your business, that in order to grow a business and to be able to serve more clients, you will be bringing on more team members. So first of all, what is a virtual assistant? A virtual assistant is essentially someone who works for your business remotely. And you'll often hear them referred to as a VA. So if you're not even familiar with this concept, that if you hear somebody say, oh, my VA did this or my VA did that, that is a virtual assistant. They're typically an independent contractor, also referred to as a subcontractor or a 1099, because that's the tax document that you supply them at the end of a business year. So that means that when you bring on a virtual assistant, you're going to have them fill out a W-9 for your business, not a W-2. They're not a W-2 employee, so therefore you don't have to pay any kind of employment taxes for them or any of those typical things that you would need in place for a W-2 employee. They will also invoice you for the services rendered. They are not a payroll employee, so that's another distinction for them. But they can carry out a variety of tasks for you. So typically think about the administrative tasks in your business. So any kind of logistics and calendars and email management and your inbox management, bookkeeping, social media, technical kind of like web-based, maintaining your website or helping you create freebies and sales funnels like graphics and things like that. So there's like a variety of ways you can start with them. And again, many of them are so accomplished. So let me share a little bit about my personal experience with virtual assistants and bringing them into my business, which I think will also help you begin to understand how you can work with them and what's the best way to work with them. And then we can kind of think about what you need to have in place, which will be next week's episode. But let me just share a little bit about my personal experience. So over my years in business, I have hired several virtual assistants, and I have had the great fortune that 99.9% of them have been phenomenal. In fact, maybe they have all been phenomenal. They just haven't been able to create the results that I needed, but they were always fantastically nice people to work with. And for that reason, sometimes it took me a longer time to let them go than probably I should have, but that's a whole other thing. But the relationship, I understand, works best if I understand what I'm looking for. And I don't want that to be a deterrent to you, because I've had to learn over time what I am looking for in each of the virtual assistant categories. I've had to hire some lovely people who weren't able to deliver completely the results that I needed. And I didn't actually know the results I needed until they weren't delivering them. And I was like, oh, that's the actual result I want from them. Like, I don't want them to just take this off of my plate. I want them to take it off of my plate and be able to produce a result. And I'll give you an example of that in a minute. And I liked it. It was better for me if they were able to work with the tools I already had in my business. I have switched tools on occasion with virtual assistants and usually regretted it because it was an additional learning curve that sometimes wasted time for me. And they left when we parted ways. I often didn't know what was going on in some of those tools if I hadn't had an opportunity to really figure them out. So I'll give you an example, because bookkeeping has been probably the hardest thing for me to learn. That bookkeeping and then social media have been the two most challenging areas for me to bring on virtual assistants. So I have worked with virtual assistants to do bookkeeping. Now, this is a scary one to hand off, but in the beginning, I just knew I wasn't very good at it. So I had originally hired a local bookkeeper, and I probably would have stayed with them except for the fact that we wanted to change accountants and they were tied to my accountant. So that's what led me on the path to looking for virtual bookkeeping assistants. So the first one that I hired was on the recommendation of a friend, and I had been in QuickBooks with my first bookkeeper, my first in-person bookkeeper. I never really understood QuickBooks, but I also don't really understand. I realize now any bookkeeping platform. I just need to hire somebody who really understands it. So anyway, I had been in QuickBooks, and this person wanted to use something called Xero, Xero. And so he transferred everything over to Xero and was cruising along just fine, and then abruptly fired a bunch of clients because of some life circumstance that he had happening, and I was one of those people. Well, the challenge was that most people who do bookkeeping are not familiar with Xero either, which made that a really cumbersome migration back to QuickBooks when I hired my next virtual assistant. And that virtual assistant was lovely. However, her business was a bit of a mess. And I did not know that when I hired her. She was recommended actually through the Profit First program. And she was never able to have my books reconciled on a regular basis. And I gave her about 18 months of patience, of never knowing what was going on inside of my books in a timely manner. And then things weren't categorized because she wasn't sending me a list asking me, like, how should certain things be categorized? So at the end of my first year working with her, my accountant was like, I have no idea. There's so many like classified expenses in here. I don't know how to, like, if you are even accurately getting the deductions that you need. And at that point, after being with her for a year, I kept her on for another 6 months just because I needed to find a replacement before I let her go. So my new bookkeeper actually works in a system called Studio Designer. So we again had to migrate out of QuickBooks, but Studio Designer I use in my design business. And they are a very expensive, what I thought is more expensive because of what I had been paying before. However, they have saved my business so much money in the fact that they are so dialed in and so prompt and reconciling everything accurately and in a timely basis that I actually can see cash flow and ebb and flow. And my accountant now can find more deductions for me because of the accuracy of my book. So they have saved me thousands of dollars, even though the monthly cost for them is higher than my previous one. So those ones seemed like they were saving me money, but they were probably losing me thousands of dollars in deductions because they were not on it. So that is just an example of hiring virtual assistants and kind of a little bit of the learning curve related to it. But I knew that I knew when I was hiring my next bookkeeping team that I knew the tool I needed them to use at that point because I had switched over to Studio Designer. I also knew what I was looking for. And I had said, if within 90 days, I am not able to look back on at least 2 months of reconciled books, then we're going to have to part ways. And that was part of our agreement. So I just want to say, that's all to say that sometimes it will take you time to understand what you need and what you want, but also that you may be switching tools and things like that. But if you can avoid it, please do so. Like another example is hiring virtual assistants to do some email strategy and marketing had me moving from Aweber to ActiveCampaign to ConvertKit. And all of that required learning curve. It required time to get up and running. And in the end, I think it was probably unnecessary for what I wanted to do. And so Aweber has always been the tool that I've used. And we've now, I do really like ConvertKit. We use that for different things. But I think if I had been more confident with the tools I was using, I probably would have said, no, I'm hiring you you need to know how to use Aweber to do what I want to do. So again, that's like a little bit of my personal experience. And it works best when I have clear outcomes that I am looking for. Just like I mentioned, key performance indicators. And sometimes those are, those key KPIs or key performance indicators are concrete, like for the bookkeeping, that the accounts are reconciled each month so that I can have a clear snapshot in real time of what's happening in my business. Or in social media, we're gaining 3 new clients each quarter who have mentioned our Instagram account, for example. Those are kind of concrete KPIs, and some of them are intangible. Like I no longer have to manage the appointment calendar because all of the logistics and scheduling are handled by my admin or my operations virtual assistant. So that has always worked best when I have figured out exactly what my end result is. But I don't want this to slow you down because sometimes you don't really know what you're looking for until you have hired somebody who isn't giving you what you want. And that is one of the key factors we'll talk about next week, which is having a trial period where you can part ways with those people and know for your own brain that you are giving them a specified period of time in which to see results, or even to learn what the results are that you're looking for, so that you can create better KPIs for your team, and then have another 90-day period where you're analyzing things, so that you don't go too long with your virtual assistants, because I made that mistake multiple times and have paid people for far too long for not doing a great job for my business. Okay, so all of that background shared, let me share with you how to know, which is the whole point of this, when you need a VA. So typically you're going to start with an administrative virtual assistant. I would say don't delegate marketing until you have a better understanding of your brand and your client and some things that actually work to drive, business to you. That's not always the case, but sometimes getting your brand voice, your brand look is really important before you bring on somebody for social media, because that is a lagging, somebody who their results will lag in bringing business into, bringing you revenue. Whereas an administrative virtual assistant taking tasks off your plate will immediately generate revenue for you, because it frees you up to go generate revenue. Okay, so the symptoms are, let's diagnose what it looks like when you may need a virtual assistant. So because you're the lead stager in your business, you're going to notice that as you get busier bringing clients in, that the administrative tasks get harder to complete, or they're happening on evenings and weekends, or they're not happening at all, or they're not happening in a timely manner. They may be things you don't look forward to doing. You may loathe having to sit down and do them, so you are procrastinating on getting them done. And they're taking you away from money-generating activities like networking and marketing that you should be doing, because those are really the biggest things you should be doing in your business, in addition to being the lead stager for a period of time. So anything that's not related to networking and marketing and meeting people and telling them that you're a stager and then doing the actual staging is not generating money for your business. And also, because you're avoiding doing things, and maybe it's like bookkeeping, for example, you don't love it, you're not good at it, you put it off, it's creating a lack of transparency in your business's financial picture. So these are some of the things that, if those are happening to you, or maybe things are becoming a nuisance, like you're getting texted while you're doing installation, so it's slowing you down and you're trying to answer people at all hours of the day from your car. Those are all symptoms that you need some help in your business, and specifically probably administrative help. So what are you going to do in order to start bringing on your virtual assistant? The first thing I want you to do is just make note of these things. Start observing the things that are not getting done. They're not getting done on a timely basis, or they're taking you away from your personal life, evenings and weekends. Those are the things, the tasks that you're going to want to hire a virtual assistant for. So you can create, a note section, a note for this in your phone if you have the Notes app, or you can do it in a Google document. Just start documenting the things that you are struggling to get done, or you hate having to sit down to do, and that you procrastinate. Or where you're just falling short of what your business needs, right? Like your financials are really important to you making decisions about how you price your services, how many services you can bring on, if you can purchase more inventory or increase the number of storage spaces or warehouse space that you're in. And I want you to remember this, because a lot of people get stuck, and we'll go into this more in next week's episode. But a lot of people get stuck on the fact that they may not feel like they have enough money to bring in a new team member. I want you to remember that you are the most highly paid employee in your business, and you are also the primary revenue generator in your business. So if you are doing these administrative roles, if you're doing them at all, or you're doing them poorly, or you're not doing them, they are taking away from one, you're having visibility on your business, first of all, and maybe your client service and all of that. But it's also taking away from you being the face of your brand, and you're costing your business money. And I know I've said this before, and I've told the story of when I was doing these administrative tasks in my business, and I was explaining this to my business coach, and that I didn't have enough clients. My business coach said, well, first of all, it sounds like you're not doing the administrative tasks particularly well. So you're overpaying for an admin when you could get an admin for $20 an hour. Your hourly rate is $150 an hour. You're paying for a very expensive administrative assistant. You're not doing it very well. And while you're doing those administrative tasks, you're not out meeting people. You're not doing networking. You're not on social media. You're not doing the things that are going to generate revenue in your business. So you're really costing your business a ton of money. And that was such an epiphany. So I want to leave you with that mindset kind of action there, a thought, something to ruminate on. Next week, we'll talk about how to begin to hire for that virtual assistant, what you need in place, and how you can prepare to bring in your first virtual assistant. So that is your sip for the week. Now, remember, we've got a new Staging Business School Instagram page at Staging Business School. So please come say hello. Follow us over there so I can follow you back. And I will look forward to seeing you next week. And remember, all of the links for all of the things I talked about at the beginning are in the show notes for you. All right, everybody, have a great week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to the Staging Sips podcast. If you love what you've learned here today, please take a minute to rate and review it so more staging business owners can find us. And if you want to learn more about how to market and grow your staging business more strategically, I'd love to see you join us inside of the Rethink You Accelerate mentorship program. It is open enrollment. You can get more details at rethinkhomeinteriors.com/rethinkyou. Would love to see you inside.